Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Let's Talk podcast with me and David, aka Shamrock Balls. And you know what? It is Thanksgiving time here in the USA, and there's not many Thanksgiving movies. So today we're going to talk about the ultimate Thanksgiving movie directed by John Hughes, produced and written by him, too. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And David, you really like this movie, too, since you put our schedule together. I know you put it on there. And what do you think of this movie, buddy?
Yeah, well, this is a film, John. I was pretty late to, believe it or not. I only seen this film, I don't know how many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. I actually absolutely just fell in love with the film. For many years, for me, like John Candy, my favorite John Candy movie was Uncle Buck, and this movie just took that crown.
Yeah, I love Uncle Buck too, actually. That's my second favorite John Hughes movie. This is my
Yeah.
favorite. Uncle Buck is my second favorite, which might sound strange because John Hughes, we love 80s movies. He's one of the beloved 80s directors. But I never had the biggest connection to like what he's probably most known for, which is those coming of age films like
Mm-hmm.
Breakfast Club, 16 Candles. I never run back to those movies.
First, Brady, that's another one. I totally agree with you. I have the exact same sentiment, and I would totally be in agreement with you there. This is my favorite John Hughes movie, with Uncle Buck being second. And I grew up watching Uncle Buck and just absolutely loved that film. Loved John Candy's performance in that film. But as for the other teen kind of movies that he done in the 80s, like as I've said before, I was a young child in the 80s, and I grew up around those kind of films being released and being on television, and hearing my friends in the streets, their older brothers or sisters, even my own brothers, maybe talking about Ferris Bueller and movies like that. And maybe me being too young at the time to even kind of relate to them as being teen movies. And when I got older and I went back and watched some of them, actually, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles was the film that made me want to go and say, listen, I need to watch Breakfast Club again. I need to watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off again. And to be honest with you, I just didn't like them as much as I liked Planes, Trains, or Uncle Buck.
No, me neither. They're much, much better movies in my opinion. I also grew up watching the movie Curly Sue a lot, which is one that's like pretty much hated by a lot of people. But I liked it at the time when I was younger. And he also wrote the Vacation movies and Home Alone. And there's
Yeah.
always kind of been like when you watch these movies, you can kind of connect some dots where it's like there's a John Hughes like connected universe out there where like certain actors pop up and you can argue like that's the same character in this film. Like even in this movie, like the guy at the beginning, that's the dad in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You could think, well, he's in Chicago. Like he just happens to work with Steve Martin's character.
Yeah, and I believe he's also in A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. He plays the father of Jesse in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, his best friend. But yeah, that's right. There seems to he's created his own universe. John Hughes did in the 80s with these films, and I had watched the special features on the Blu-ray last night, and he had talked about how that they mentioned in the interviews for Planes, Trains, but when it was being released, how as he created this wee repertoire company of actors, and he just basically said, "Listen, I have an idea when I write a character of who I would like to play that character. So, and I've worked for them before, so I like to bring them back," and that's what he basically does. He was also accused of writing teen angst movies in the 80s. So they were films that weren't critically really praised that much because they were seen as teen angst movies. And with Planes, Trains, that he was then seen to be moving into more adult kind of movies. And maybe that's what it is, John, with me and yourself, where we prefer these more kind of adult theme movies to the teenage movies. I think I'd mentioned before in one of the podcasts that we had done that I feel as if that John Hughes' teenage movies, especially like films like Ferris Bueller's and Breakfast Club, it's more of a fantastical type of idea of what a teenager was to be in the 80s rather than the reality.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. And I also think it's more relatable for kids who were that age of the 80s and they look back at it and beloved it at that as much. And like, the adult ones, they age better because once you grow up, you kind of start relating to other adults, and most adults can look at movies like this and Uncle Buck. And casting John Candy as Uncle Buck, he looks like the typical uncle. It's the perfect
Yeah,
casting.
yeah.
But he's still perfect in this film, in my opinion, even over Uncle Buck. I love John Candy though.
Yeah, well, I was watching this again at the weekend, and thinking about it, and I have to say that because I was kind of new to planes, trains, and automobiles in the last 5, 6 years or whatever it may be, I think this is possibly his best performance, all round performance. I've seen him give really good performances, even in small roles that he's played. But I like to. But now when I think of John Candy, when I used to think of him as Uncle Buck, I now think of him as his character in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yeah, that's always what pops in my mind first. Is his character in this. Now, Steve Martin, it's a little bit different because Steve Martin actually in this movie, you could argue, is playing more of the straight man.
Yeah.
And I think of other Steve Martin movies before I think of this movie, despite the fact that this would probably still be my favorite Steve Martin movie, just like on a personal list.
Do you know, Steve Martin's a strange one for me because he's another one that I remember growing up. People talking about Steve Martin. He was very prominent in the 80s. Some of the movies he had done. I remember watching. What's that one called? Is it Roxanne or Roxette? What's the one where he
with the big nose? Roxanne.
Yes, Roxanne, yeah, and finding that comical, and it's really funny because he's kind of got this rubber-looking face, so it matched that rubber nose, and strange-looking guy. I always thought, and I'm not his biggest fan. I know that Father of the Bride, I haven't seen it many years. I remember it being a very funny film. He's in that, isn't he? Father of the Bride.
Oh yeah, I love the two. There's two of them. I love both of the Father of the Bride movies. Actually, it's weird. Those are kind of movies that another two movies I grew up with that my mother really loves. So like every New Year's, I watch those two movies.
Yeah, well, Father of the Bride, I haven't seen it many years, John. But the thing is, get back to Planes, Trains, is that I absolutely love his performance in this film. And you're right. I think I love his performance in this film because he is playing more of the straight guy. It's like I'm not a big fan of Adam Sandler. But I love the movie Anger Management. And what makes Anger Management really good for me is that Adam Sandler's playing more of the straight guy and he's reacting to what is happening around him. And that's what makes it funny. And I feel the same with, and of course, Anger Management, Jack Nicholson playing the funny guy in that movie is absolutely hilarious. And I find the same in this, is that it's more kind of that he is reacting to the stuff that's happening around him. And that's what makes it very funny for me.
Yeah, it's a total fish out of water sequence for this guy. Like he's not used to this. Like really, he's a snobby, like upper middle class guy. Like look at the house he lives in. You could see the job he has. He's worried about his gloves. Like as we open the movie, like I need my gloves to go out in the streets. That's not something that freaking Del Griffith is going to worry about. This guy's hauling a freaking trunk around.
Yeah, exactly. And in their own way, they're both very, very strange guys. It's these two kind of strange, almost polar opposite personalities who probably, in a lot of ways, have a lot in common too. And it's how they kind of come together and irritate each other. And what comes out of it is this beautiful friendship. It's almost like a bromance, which actually blossoms between the two of them. And I just love watching that journey that they go on.
And it's crazy because this movie's a feat in editing because this movie's only 93 minutes long. So we have to go through all the beats of your typical road trip movie in just over 90 minutes, which is crazy in the world we live in today because you have to believe that at the very beginning, these guys, at least one guy hates the other guy. And by the end, this guy finally comes around to the point where he's like, you can come over for Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, and that's the absolutely beautiful thing about this film. And you're right, it doesn't let up. I mean, it's billed as a comedy, but there's some really great dramatic moments in this film. And I think the comedy works so well. It makes me laugh every time I watch it. I don't get bored of it, those comedic moments, but it's balanced nicely with those dramatic, emotional moments. And I think that John Candy and Steve Martin both give tremendous acting performances in this film as well, especially John Candy.
I agree. His monologue, and really early in the movie at the hotel, that's one of my favorite monologues, how he just basically says, okay, after Steve Martin just spent like 3 minutes just ripping him apart as a human being, just saying, okay, that's fine.
Like me. My wife likes me. So I'm the real article. What you see is what you get.
Even though he's kind of manipulating Steve Martin, but that monologue is delivered beautifully by John Candy.
Yeah, and the thing about John Candy is that he's such a big guy. He's such an imposing guy, and there was a thought that, as I said earlier, about John Hughes taking characters or taking actors and not specifically writing parts for them, but I know he did do that in some of his movies, like Molly Ringwood and people like that. But they said he almost tailored these roles for Steve Martin and John Candy, so it's kind of like their personas kind of heightened, and that's the thing about Steve Martin. He's a smaller guy than John Candy, and when he is verbally attacking John Candy like that, you can see John Candy. I would say the man. I'm not talking about John Candy the person. I'm talking about the character, Dale. I don't think he's a pushover, but you can tell he's not violent. He's not a threat. You know what I mean? He's and he's hurt from what he's actually Neil has actually said to him. But you can tell that he's probably a big softy at heart. But it's so funny, like that scene as well after that monologue. How Steve Martin knows he's went too far, and Dale gets into the bed and he's kind of huffing. You can see him kind of pulls the covers and he looks around at him and pulls it back again.
He looks back at him too. Like he looks back, like to see if he's gonna come back, to see if like what he said actually meant something to him. That's what I mean. He's kind of manipulating him a little bit. Like he's like, "All right, you went low. I'll make you feel bad for it now."
Yeah, they've only just kind of at. And look, you know what? Just as I say, because we're probably got a wee bit ahead of ourselves here, because that's a classic scene. But as you say, when he leaves his boss's office, and I love how his friend says to him, "You'll never make this X."
but cool little thing that they do in the film, which this movie has a few of these cool little things that kind of just are out of place, but I like how they highlight that the 6 p.m. thing. That's a little thing, just how they highlight it on the screen.
Yeah, where it kind of highlights on the his ticket. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And he's mouthing to his friend, "I've got to go. I have a plane to catch." but then he goes out in the sidewalk to get the taxi, and Kevin Bacon is racing him for the taxi cab.
Yeah, which is also a great like little John Hughes tie-in because of the movie She's Having a Baby.
Apparently that Kevin Bacon, when he was making that film, said to John Hughes when they were finishing the movie, "Whatever you're doing next, can I be in it? I don't care what it is, even if it's just a cameo, even if it's just an extra, can I be in it?" And he says he couldn't believe it. He got a call for this really small role at the start of that movie. So anybody who knows Kevin Bacon and is watching that movie, he's like, "What the hell is Kevin Bacon doing in this film?" At the start, I was the same. I remember watching it when the first time I watched it. I know when you're kind of watching something and then it shows him across the street, and then it's like, and then it cuts, and I was like, "Was that Kevin Bacon?" And it goes back, and I was like, "It is." And you never see him again for the rest of the film. But yeah,
weird. Later in the movie, his wife, Neil Page's wife, is watching She's Having the Baby, and it's weird because the movie was filmed first, but that movie comes out after this movie, so she's watching a movie that's not been released yet.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's a little quick thing. That's what's on the TV is that movie. So it's like John Hughes putting a little Easter egg to himself in his movie.
I didn't even realize that, John. So he was advertising himself for this movie. Go and see this movie as well. But yeah, but the whole thing is at the start as well, as you were saying about Dale Griffiths' case, that trunk he's pulling about, that like Dale Griffiths has, even though his boss was the one that kept him behind for him to be late, but he has basically been the whole reason for Neil Page to start this crazy journey, because he tripped over his trunk and then he stole his taxi cab. And I love when he gets to the door and he opens it, and John Candy, it's the first glimpse you see of John Candy's face. He just turns and kind of looks at him like surprised.
And I love it like, when they get to the airport, like when he's trying to put it together, they do like a little quick cutaway, but it's still in the airport of like him with the face in the taxi. It's a weird little thing.
Yeah, he kind of just goes like that.
Yeah.
it's weird. You see the book, The Canadian Mounted.
He's reading a porn book in the freaking airport.
And he kind of pulls it down and just see his eyes, and you see his eyes like zooming in, like zeroing in on him as if, "I know you." And he says, "Wait a minute." And I actually read that that was a book that John Candy found at home. He had at home, and he brought it himself on set to read in the airport. As part of the scene. And to strike up this friendship, as you say, is like Dale Griffiths to me is like at the very start of the movie, he's like saying things to Neil that are very pessimistic, but with a smile on his face and in a very jolly way. Like, we're never going to get to this airport tonight. Oh, well, and he's saying these type of things to Neil and, kind of like beating him down a bit, but with a smile on his face.
Yeah, it's hysterical how he is. Everything the whole way. And then when they are on the plane, like, there is not a human being that would, if someone did that to me on a plane, I'd have to say something. They take their socks and shoes off. Oh, my dogs are barking tonight.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. When he says to him about, he says, I'm tired or whatever, I just want to get some sleep. And he's like, he says, so if I'm going on, if I'm not on the way, you just let me know. And he's like, okay, I will. And he's like, the last thing I'd hate to be is like not earn on, and I hate to be that type of person. He is doing it. But when they eventually do get that hotel room, he talks him into coming with him to get the hotel room. Like, he says, if you pay for the taxi ride, and then he pays, so basically Neil pays for the taxi ride, and then he cons him into paying for the room, because he's like, we'll go halfers. And then your man goes, yeah, but I'll give you this room, but I'll only charge you half price. So he kind of calls him into paying for the room, and when they walk in and they see the double bed. I love that shot.
Oh my god! And the sting in the score when they hover on the bed.
They're on, but when they show the bed, right, and then the camera swings around, and you see kind of Dale look at it, Neil, like with this big weird grin on his face, and then it's just this weird silence, and to break the silence, Dale says, "Do you want to have a shower?" And he's like, what? And he's like, oh, no, just me. Do you want to go first? I was like, oh, right. He says, oh, no, I didn't mean that. So, as you say, that's just setting the tone. I mean, it's just, when it begins to just their acting as being two strangers, and Dale trying to get to know Neil, and Neil just not really wanting to know, just wanting to get home, and ended up in this really weird situation, basically with this stranger sharing a bed in a hotel room.
It's crazy. I would never, like, in my life, I could never do that. And John Candy doesn't care. He's cracking his neck. And when he goes in the bathroom, I don't know how Steve Martin misses that entire disgusting mess when he gets in the shower, but who does that?
No, it's like, yeah, it's like a bomb's hit the place, and he's got this wee tiny towel left, and I know Steve Martin had joked that he got off of each foot from that set because all the water. But yeah, and then obviously he comes out, and when Dale's irritated him about the beer spraying on the bed, so he's lying on a wet patch on the bed as well. It's also funny, but what's even funnier then is the next day when he wakes up and John Candy is basically he's spooning Steve Martin and kissing his ear.
And then Baby's Arms is playing. It's perfect. The perfect setup. There's popcorn all over the bed.
Yeah. And he's like, Dale, why are you kissing my ear? And he's like, why are you holding my hand? And he's like, I don't know. Where's your other hand? In between two pillows. Those aren't pillows. But I love it. Yeah, I love when they bounce out of bed, and they're like, oh, well, did you see that football game the other night? Acting all manly and all,
They're like, oh, yeah, that didn't just happen. You ever notice above the bed, too, when they jump out, there's like two handprints above the bed?
No, I never noticed that before.
Yeah, there is. There's two handprints above the bed, so whoever was in there before or however long, like, was doing something in there.
I must watch out for that next time.
It's crazy. And then, that leads right into when they realize they get robbed at the diner, which is hysterical, too. Like, we've been robbed. Gee, you think so?
Yeah, he's just so that's like performance as well that he brings to Dale as well, and but the next day, and that's the thing too as well, not to jump too far ahead, because Neil's paying for a lot of this. Maybe Dale doesn't have too much money, but the thing is that he's the one arranging for the travel. He really is, because Neil wants to get home and he is stuck, and when he arranges that truck ride the next day, that the guy that gets out of the truck is just another weird scene. And He's like, are you the shower curtain guy?
You know who that is
uh,
too?
no.
That's Dylan Baker, of all people.
Right. Who's Dylan Baker?
Dylan Baker. Have you ever seen the movie Trick or Treat or Happiness? Like, if you saw him without all that makeup, I think you'd recognize him. He's got one of those like kind of that guy faces.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I hate nothing like that guy ever that he's in this movie though. So it's always funny. But I love he's talking about it's like she's skinny, but she's strong.
That's what I was gonna say. It's one of my favorite lines where he basically says about the last child she had came out sideways. She didn't scream or nothing. And they both look at each other and they're like, "Oh no! We'll put it in the back. It's done. It's done."
You're a trooper.
yeah. But yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. Another weird situation that they end up in there.
Oh, yeah, in the back of that with the dog, no less.
Yeah.
And the questions he's asking, it's like, what do you think the temperature is? 1.
Yeah. So that brings them to the train, doesn't it? And he pays for his train ticket, and he says to him, "I need your address to send you the price for the ticket." And he says, "Think of it as a gift." And he thinks, "That's it. I'm rid of this guy. I'm on my way back now. Here we go." And of course, the train breaks down, and when he sees Dale struggling with his trunk, he basically takes pity on him because he knows him and he's kind of helped him out a bit with getting the truck ride and the hotel room, and he helps him with the truck. And I think is that the scene after that where they're in the diner and he tells him he wants to go separate ways.
Yeah, and it's almost like a breakup scene, like basically like, when we put our minds together, we really have gotten nowhere. And it basically is like a breakup scene. Like, he's trying to let him down easy, and he's like, I get it, just stop.
Yeah, and he's like, "I'll pay for this," and he's like, "No, it's fine. No, I'll pay for it. It's done. He says, "If you want to leave it on the table, leave it on the table." But you're right, it's like he's breaking up with him, and again, but that's what I go back to about the really great acting moments, even though it's funny how Candy acts that scene. You can tell like his character's genuinely hurt. When he stands up and he says to him, "I'll see you later," and he went, "Yes, sure you will." Yeah, you can it's just a really great acting performance, and it's the same in the hotel room as you mentioned earlier, John. When Neil attacks his character and he says, "Yeah, sure, you want to hurt me, go ahead, but my wife likes me, my customers like me." Again, that's another scene that I love, and that's what I love about this film is that the comedy's great, but I think those kind of scenes when you first go into this thinking it's a comedy, it's unexpected. And they're the scenes that I love seeing again when I watch the film.
Yeah, those are the scenes that I like to go back to also, is watching the more emotional scenes because they do float a fine line between just over the top, ridiculous comedy and yet very emotional moments. And honestly, that's what John Candy and Steve Martin can both bring to the table is they can both do those over the top characters like Steve Martin in The Jerk, or they can float that line between dramatic roles. And Steve Martin's always had that look to him, like where he looks like a dad, like a middle-aged guy. His hair's always been like gray or white. So you buy into him being this like uptight jerk throughout the entire movie who needs to learn like lighten up a little bit. But he gets dealt the hand of Del Griffith, like this just like monster of a man, like who's really gonna break him down.
Yeah, exactly. And that goes into the scene then where he rents the car, which I think this leads up to one of the funniest parts of the whole movie is when he gets there and the car's not there and he has to make his way back, and he goes into the airport really peeved off, really pissed off with his tie tied around his head. And he goes to the counter and there's the woman at the desk who's on the phone, and it's like rubbing salt in the wound because he just wants to get home to his family for Thanksgiving, and he's been put through 24 hours of hell right now, and he feels as if this company has really let him down because when he got out there the car wasn't there, then the bus drove off and he had to walk back. And I know what I always look at when I'm watching this film, John, as well, I look at like John Candy's wearing like these big boots. They're made for the cold, they're made for the snow, and Steve Martin's wearing like these wee slip-on like kind of shoes, and I always kind of look at his shoes and think to myself, oh, his feet must be really cold and sore by now. And when he
yeah. Well, Dale Griffith, the entire movie, he's got the Parker on, the mitten,
Yeah.
he's got that ridiculous hat on. He's prepared for any situation because, as we find out, he lives on the road, so everything that he needs, he's prepared for. Meanwhile, Steve Martin's like, the only time I'm going to be outside, he needed just this one pair of gloves. He's like, forget it this time.
Yeah, right enough. And it's to get out of come out of the building, jump in a cab, go to the airport on the plane, probably out of the plane into his car at the airport, or get another cab to his house, and that's it. Whereas John Candy's just a bit of a rogue. He's always on the move. He probably has different clothes in that trunk as well, which he can change into. So he's in this airport and he's really peeved off and just wants to get home to his family for Thanksgiving. And there's the clerk on the phone talking about Thanksgiving. And that's just enough salt to rub in the wound. And I love how she's on the phone and she goes, gobble, gobble.
No, that's the perfect, again, like this little perfect casting. Like this girl, she's so excited, doing this whole little like monologue on the phone to like her sister or something, and like all the stuff that she's gonna making him wait. And then it's like, oh, can I help you? Smiling in his face, and that's why when he loses it, I want you to wipe that fucking smile off your face,
of your fucking rosy cheeks, and get me a fucking car. Yes, 100%. I couldn't stop laughing. The first time I watched that scene, I couldn't stop laughing because it kept going, and I had to laugh. Like at the interview that John Hughes and Steve Martin and John Candy done for the film, like John Hughes had said that this girl he had thought for this role when he wrote it, and she was in. Like, I haven't seen a lot of John Hughes movies because, as an adult, loving Uncle Buck and them Planes, Trains, I wanted to go, as I say, go back and watch the likes of some of them other ones, Ferris Bueller and stuff like that. And I watched Weird Science again, and it's okay. And it wasn't fussed on Ferris Bueller, and I wasn't fussed on The Breakfast Club, so I stopped. But she is actually in Ferris Bueller as the secretary in the school, and he had said to her, she was on another film with him. I'm not sure if it was Ferris Bueller, and he had said, "Look, read this part for me." And she thought she was just reading it for him, just to see what he thought of a script. But she didn't realize she was like auditioning. And he phoned her up and says, "Listen, I want you to do this part for me." But apparently the monologue wasn't about Thanksgiving. And when she was doing the scene, he had said to her, "Look, talk a wee bit about Thanksgiving." So at the end, so she started talking a wee bit about Thanksgiving at the end, and then he says there, "Do you know what? Just make the whole monologue about Thanksgiving and really give it to Steve Martin, really give it to him because he's really irritated about Thanksgiving." And that's what she done, and she added the gobble gobble at the end. And but she was absolutely brilliant in that part, perfect.
Yeah, again, just little perfect casting throughout this entire movie. Just even earlier in the movie, Ben Stein in the airport, who's been in other John Hughes movies, when he cancels the flights, like, why does he have a little smirk on his face? Like, why is he happy to do that?
Yeah, John Hughes had said that he had thought of him for that part as well, because he had said that that when he wrote that, he imagined him playing him, and he says the character just reminded him of so many people that he had heard in places like airports like that when they're giving you bad news, they say with a wee smile at the end. And that was a thing too about the cursing. He had said about the cursing as well, because the F word had made it like an R rating. And John Hughes said in the press conference, he says, well, there's only it's only in one scene. And Steve Martin says, yeah, but it was said like 19 times.
That is honestly, that it stands out because it is the only time they curse in the entire movie is that one scene. Otherwise, it's pretty much a PG-13 movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. But I think I wonder if it wasn't any curse words in it, would even be given But yeah, probably would in the States. Probably would have been given a PG-13. I'm not sure what it would have been given over here. Probably. I don't know if it would have been given a PG, maybe a 15. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, there's no sex scenes. There's no drug use throughout the entire movie. There's nothing really in it other than they don't curse any other time in the movie other than in that one scene. I mean, that's what makes that scene so memorable, though, is because it stands out in this movie. Like that's him building up to this final big blow up.
Yeah, and exactly, and I think as Steve Martin says, it works.
Oh, it works perfectly. It's hysterical.
Yeah, exactly. And then of course when he goes out to get a taxi, and the guy running the taxi stand
Oh, that's
is
a great line.
yeah is being very facetious to him. Why don't you get a plane? You get a free meal. It's like there was a deleted scene where it showed you them eating the meals.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
there is there's a lot of deleted scenes. We haven't brought that up yet, but this movie is like it's cutting very differently, and there's certain aspects of this movie that stand out because like they seem weird because it's actually just cut out of the movie.
yeah, well, I know we can get to that, but I don't. Well, you want to talk about that, and I want to talk about that too. But it's funny that the only deleted scene that on the version that I have is they're on their airplane and they're eating, and John Candy has this lovely salad, and you've probably seen this. Steve Martin has a lasagna, but it's like burned, and he can't eat it, and he ends up giving it away, and he's only there for the brownie. And then the person sitting in front of him, the plane, throws their hair over and lands in his brownie. And John Candy says, "I take it you don't want the brownie either." And he moves the herd away and eats the brownie and shares it with one of the other passengers. So it's funny then that later on, when the guy says to him, when he's going to rent him a car, he says to him, "Oh, why don't you get a plane? It's quicker and you get a free meal."
Yeah, it makes that would actually make that joke funnier. But then if he follows it up with, "Huh, that's if I wanted a joke, I'd follow you into the John."
And once you take a leak, and he hits him, and that's what I'm saying about John Candy's character, because that's what I'm saying about. I don't think he's a card, but he's a gentle giant. He's a softie, because when he near runs him over and he gets out of the car and he says to him, "I near squished your head like a melon," and then he Neil opens his eyes and it's almost like he's dreaming. He's like, "Dale," and he's like, "And your man," and he basically confronts the guy that hit him and says, "Don't be doing that. You could have killed him." And I love how, but when they're driving in the car, and he says to him about, I've never seen a guy get lifted up by their nuts before.
His voice is high pitched. No, and his voice is so high pitched from that being grabbed in the balls like that. It's ridiculous.
It is, and the movie does kind of walk that fine line of the real absurd and silliness and reality, and it does it really well. The balance is so well, because there is so many real comedic moments in this film where it is over the top. It's not realistic, but you can forgive it for that, because it's not exactly a serious drama, but it does have them real kind of emotional, dramatic scenes in it, emotional punches just at the right times. It gives you all these different types of emotions while you're watching it. You're laughing and you could nearly cry at some scenes, but the best part in that car sequence, and actually now that I mentioned the car, do you not think that the car?
I was waiting for you to bring this up.
Yeah, 100% Vacation.
Oh, it definitely is. That's another one of those John Hughes things. Is that car has the exact same body style as the family cruiser.
Yeah, the Queen family truckster.
Truckster.
The Queen. Yeah, it's the exact same, like the green and the wood panels. How you feel? How you doing? Yeah, it's exact same. And I was like, when I was watching this on Sunday, I was like, I must say to John about, do you think that that's a nod to Vacation?
It has to be. John Hughes wrote Vacation, so he has the rights to do whatever. Because and also, I've never seen those cars in real life. They have to only be designed for these movies.
Yeah, exactly. And I love how when John Candy's messing with the seat.
Oh my god, that's a ridiculous scene too. And the fact that those seats move like that, I don't know if cars ever had seats that move like that, but that's pretty ridiculous too. But he's in there, he's got the cigarette in his mouth, playing the piano with his coat on.
Yeah, but I love how he says. He says, "I'm trying to get the seat adjusted here, Matt." He says, "Have you a bad back?" He's like, "No." And he's like, "Well, I do." And then when he goes, "Oh, there you go, that's it. That's it." And he's like, "Oh, no." And he's like, "What?" He says, I can't bend down and take my shoes off now." And he's like, "Keep your shoes on." but later on, when he breaks the seat, he's broken the seat, and I that's one of my favorite lines of the whole movie, John, when he says to him, "This time, is John Candy's driving this time?" I don't know if it's got that far yet, but he says to him about there's things that you do which irritate me, and he like what? And John Candy's like, well, you play with your balls a lot, and he's like, no, I'm not doing that. And he's like, yes, you do. And he says, do you know what would make me really happy? And he says, some extra balls and an extra set of fingers.
That is a great line. He's like, Larry Ball, or is it like, what do you say? Larry Bird does less ball playing than you, or more ball playing.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, that again, what we're talking about, the heightened reality, and I love when they're driving down. John Candy, you're saying he's playing, pretending to play the piano and stuff, and he gets distracted. Because his coat, he gets really warm. So he goes to throw the cigarette out the window, and it bounces in the back seat, and the car's getting really warm. He goes to take the jacket off, and it gets caught in the seat, and he ends up near crashing the car, but he goes off onto a different road. And I love how
this is a great line too, when they're back on the road and the other people are trying to warn them that they're going the wrong way. Like Steve Martin agrees with him. He's like, you're going the wrong way. And he's like, how would they know where we're going? He's like, yeah. Well, how would they know which way we're going?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I absolutely love that. So funny because it's a very funny line. We know what they mean, but that is true. But how would they know which way they're going? And that is very funny. It is when he says, "But you're going the wrong way," and he's like, "Just know which way." He's like, pumps the horn off, beep beep, thank you. and that heightened reality, I love that shot. It's really weird the first time you see it. You go, "What's fucking weird?" But when they go in between the two trucks, and it's almost seen from Neil's point of view. It's like, his life is kind of being flashed before him. He sees him, both of them as skeletons, and he sees Dale as the devil. And he turns and just laughs at him, dressed up as the devil.
Yeah, I love that because that's the guy that's been ruining his life, and now he's gonna die in a head-on collision. So he sees him as the devil laughing.
Yeah, exactly.
How they cut between, they both turn into skeletons and then they spin out and stop. And again, more heightened reality things, because Dell's got the steering wheel completely bent forward, and then Neil's got his fingers ingrained into the dashboard.
That's right. And I love how he kind of like takes them out. Did you hear that noise? They got noise when he's taking them out. Yeah, and he thinks it's funny. Neil thinks it's funny because he thinks it's Dale's car that he rented, and when he tells him, "No, I rented it with your credit card," that's when he kind of like gets serious. And he punches him and turns, but falls over the trunk again. The trunk is his folly again, and and that leads on to the second motel scene, and yeah, I absolutely love it when they go in. And did you notice who the clerk was working behind the desk?
Yeah, that guy. That's another one of those guys. But where am I recognizing him from? I feel like Indiana Jones, but I could be wrong.
You're pretty close. There's only one film that I think I've seen him in other films. I can't think what, but there's one film that I know 100% he's in, and he's very good in it. He plays the lawyer in Jurassic Park.
Yes, he does. Who dies in the porta potty, right?
Yep, exactly. And he plays this wee small role in this, and he's brilliant. And I love this where he says, "Can I have a room?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's $42." And he's like, "Well, I have these credit cards," and he takes them out. They're all kind of burned, singed and burned. And he says, "Well, I've got $12 and this very expensive watch." And he says, then he says to Dale, "Can I help you?" And he says, "I'd like a room too." He says, "I got $2 and a Casio."
And he lays it out. He's like, "Look how nice it is."
He puts it across his arm like this, as if he's on QVC. And he's like, "What?"
And then the guy's like, "Yeah, I have to say goodnight."
And that's the thing too. And I love that kind of touching kind of scene where he's in the melted car, and he's sitting there and he's talking to his wife. And listen, the first time you watch this movie, you don't realize, but that's what I like about certain movies. I think we talked about it before, about you shouldn't have to watch a movie again and again. And I don't think this is a movie you have to watch again and again, but this is a movie that you get more out of the more you watch it and the more you know. It's kind of like when we done Psycho, and how Hitchcock said Psycho was a black comedy. And once you get over the scares of the movie and you get over the twist, then you can watch it from like a different perspective, and it becomes kind of comedic, not in a bad way, but comedic in a way that you know what the twist is. And it's kind of the same in this, because it's first and foremost it's a comedy, and it hits you with these unexpected emotional moments in the movie. And once you get past that comedic part of it and the twist at the end, you can watch it from a different perspective. And this is one of them scenes, this and in the motel room, that kind of gives it a different kind of point of view. It gives it a different dimension. And I like how when John Candy's in the car and he says, he's talking to his wife and he's like, I really like, this is a guy I get on with and I really like him. And, only so he's self-aware that he's too much sometimes, that he's overbearing. And he says, I wish I could tone it down, and me and my big mouth, and I wish you were here, but we know you can't be. And the first time you watch it, you just think, oh, she can't be there because he can't get home.
We think he's on the road just away from his family, just like Neil is. We don't think that she's gone.
Exactly. And I love how, even though Neil is really pissed off at this point, this is the second night that he's away. He's supposed to be home by now. He's supposed to be home 2 days ago, but the next day is going to be Thanksgiving, and he just wants to get a night's sleep. I'm sure he's exhausted. He's probably cold and warm at the same time in that car, and but he can't sleep. He's not that mean to leave this guy out in the freezing cold. And I love how he opens the door and he doesn't say, "Hey, yo, come on in." To kind of make the peace, he just says his way of saying, "Come in and get warm and get to bed," is, you're going to freeze out there. I love that.
Yeah, and then this is where the movie makes the last real dramatic turn in their relationship, because now we get to actually see them bonding with each other in a friendly way, which in a very creative way too, drinking the little bottles of alcohol and how they're passing them around, and doing accents in the regions they're from. Feel like a real friendship, like a really
Yeah.
I think really, again, like you've brought up a couple times, the acting, two great actors playing along with each other as if they are becoming real friends.
Yeah, that's, apart from the climax of the movie, this is probably my favorite scene. I love, you get a snippet of it, as you mentioned earlier, John, in the first hotel room scene, where, as I said, Neil attacks his character and Dale gives that speech, very memorable and touching speech. But you get more of it here, and it's even though it's funny, it's more of a dramatic scene, and it is these two guys have finally found common ground. They've became friends. This is the scene where they've became friends. They've only known each other about 2 days, and but they've been through so much, and you can see that. Dale has that talk to himself in the car about, he genuinely likes Neil. He likes the guy, and you can see that Neil isn't that bad of a mean of a person, that he appreciates Dale, I suppose, to a point now, because he has got him this far, and he lets him in the room, and I like that back and forth with the comedy through in between. And I particularly like how John Candy, Dale, does the Jamaican accent, and he knows it's bad. He's doing it bad on purpose. He knows it's bad, and he's laughing at himself, saying, "Jamaica man, I want to drink this rum, man." And he knows himself it's bad, and they both start laughing, and I think that's so good. And that's when Neil says to him, about his wife. He says, "You really do love her, don't you?" And I just like how, as I said about Psycho, when you watch this again, you see it from a completely different point of view. You can see the pain in John Candy's face. He doesn't speak. He just nods and gives up the gut as if, yeah, I do love her. Because he obviously, Neil doesn't know that she's gone. And he says, well, no matter what, no matter what happens, we've got waves that love us at home. And he's like, to the waves. And I love that.
No, I completely agree. You could see that pain in his face, and you don't put the dots together the first time, but the second time, you could see he's holding back tears, and he doesn't say to him I'm not going to drag you down into what I'm feeling right now. You have your wife and family. I might not, but I'll let him think it. He doesn't want to like spoil it for him.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's my favorite scene. And when he talks about being a whopper in the car, laughing all the way to the toilet. And you could tell as well that Dale is kind of like softening because he's no longer this kind of uptight, serious businessman who just wants to get home to his family. He still wants to get home to his family, but he's kind of says to him, I feel like I'm at summer camp. In other words, I feel like a child again.
Yeah, he's coming around the next day, even like the clothes he's wearing. They're singing the songs in the car. Like, this is one of my favorite scenes and got the biggest laugh out of me the first time I saw the movie. Like, I quote this one scene all the time, which the cop who pulls them over, Michael McTiernan, I believe his name is the guy from what is it? You probably know.
Sorry, yeah, Michael McKean.
McKean, the guy from Spinal Tap and recently and Better Call Saul. Really good actor, actually. But he they have no speedometer because this car is just destroyed, and they get pulled over. And the cop, and he walks up to the car, and he's like, "Do you guys think that this car is safe for highway travel?" And he's like, Yes, I do, and I truly believe that. And he's like, "You have any idea how fast you were going?" He's like, "Well, I was just telling my friend here that because the speedometer was burned from the accident we had last night, there's no way for me to accurately tell how fast we were going." But he's like, but the radio still works clear as a bell. He's like, "So you have no working gauges?" Nope, not a one.
Yeah, and what's funny about that is, first of all, about Michael McKean, I agree, brilliant actor, very funny actor too. He was in Short Circuit too. As well, I loved him in that as well. But yes, Spinal Tap is one of my favorite comedies of all time, and him and Christopher Guest and Harry Shearer are so funny together. But yes, what you're saying about the car, that is another favorite, very funny scene, because when they're driving the car and singing, they pass the couple that's seen them on the highway saying you're going the wrong way, and they just kind of look at them while they drive past singing. It's the same couple. And then when the cop puts him over, Michael McKean does a fabulous acting job. He actually says to him, "Do you believe this car is roadworthy?" And that's when John Candy's like, yes, sir. I do believe. I believe it is." He's like, "I believe it is." He's like, "Do you believe?" He's like, "I believe it is." And he says about that, "Do you know how fast you were going?" He said, "Well, our speedometer melted." That's what he says, melted, and that's what he says about. Well, you were saying doing 78 miles an hour, and he says, since our speedometer has melted, I would say that you would have more of an idea how accurate, how fast we were going." But yeah, that is so funny. He says, "I'm trying to get my friend home here for Thanksgiving to his family." And Michael McKean says, "Well, I don't believe this car is roadworthy, and we'll have to impound the car." And like you say, you can go into it maybe later, John, because you probably have that longer version. But in the next scene when they impound the car, John Candy has a black eye. Did you notice that?
Yep, from one of the deleted scenes that takes place in between, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've seen it. Apparently, that they start blaming. But Michael McKean said that his part was a lot bigger than that, and he was going to tell them that they'd overshot Chicago by 100 miles, and they started blaming John Candy and Steve Martin started blaming each other and got into a bit of a fight, and the cop had to break it up, and that's why John Candy's got the black eye. But they decided to edit that out of the film.
That makes a lot of sense to edit out, because that would be like going backwards in the film. Like, we've already passed the point now where they are friends, so that would be backtracking a little bit, and it wouldn't make sense in the upcoming ending of it.
Yeah, no, listen, I totally agree with you. And the thing is that you get to that next scene where he's arranging for the truck to bring them to Chicago, and why at that stage, like, if they started fighting again, it would be like you say, you'd be like, "Oh, they're fighting again." It would be like, why would he trust them to get in the truck? Even though, in the context of the movie, when I said earlier, when you split it into Neil's paying for everything and Dale's arranging for everything, a kind of yin and the yang works perfectly. If they were to fight again, I would find it hard to believe that Neil would still trust them at this stage.
Yeah, exactly. I think it would be like the last straw, especially if they were just fighting there. That's why I think it worked better. Like, oh, okay, we get a little scene, the car's being towed, and that's it. They just found a way. It's the final stop. And it's funny because this reminds me a little bit of which John Candy's in this part of the movie, the end of Home Alone, actually, where the last step is in the back of a truck very similar to this, and John Candy's the guy in the back of the van.
Do you know what? I have a confession to make.
What's that?
I watched Home Alone when it first came out, and I've never seen it since.
We have to change that.
And I was thinking about this because I knew we'd be talking about a wee bit about John Hughes and maybe some of his movies. And my daughter loves Home Alone. She watches it every Christmas with her mum and her mum and her mum's family. And I haven't seen it since 1990 or 91. And the thing was that at that particular time, I'm around the same age as Macaulay Culkin. I'm either the same age or there's a year between us. Don't know which way. And I remember when it came out, maybe there was a bit of jealousy, but just feeling that he was obnoxious. And I just didn't like the movie. And I haven't watched it ever since. And everybody loves it. And they keep saying to me, you need to watch it again.
Yeah, I love that movie, and I love the very end of Home Alone 2. Like, I don't really love Home Alone 2 as much as the original, but I love the two parts played by Daniel Stern and Joe Pesci. I love the Wet Bandits and the Sticky Bandits. I love them in that movie. Macaulay Culkin. One thing you realize as an adult, if you do watch it now, is that he's a little fuck as a kid. You know, like you would hate him.
Yeah, that's how I felt as a kid. Maybe there was a bit of jealousy there because I was the same age as this kid. I'm watching them do this stuff to these adults. I was a bit jealous, and I suppose the word would be obnoxious. Maybe I thought he was obnoxious, and I have never went back and watched them. So maybe I do need to go back and watch them again. But listen, I listened to a podcast with Macaulay Culkin and John Candy's daughter. I think it was a year ago, and I tell you what, listen, he seems like a really sound, dead-on fella. So, as I say, he was only a kid and he was playing a character. So, there you go. It's only a film. So,
yeah. But it's funny. John Candy, and it's not really a great story, but John Candy did one day of shooting for 20 hours for that movie as a favor to John Hughes. And he got paid like the minimum for it. Like, I don't know what it was as an actor, but like $500 or something ridiculous.
Yeah,
movie and Uncle Buck, you know, like he's like, okay, I owe you one. You kind of gave me two great roles. But that leads up to the very end of the movie, which is them finally getting home. And this is a great tie into Home Alone 2. The house is right next door to the Home Alone house.
Oh, right. Okay.
So that's why it looks I always thought it was the same house, but I looked it up and apparently, I think it's Warner Brothers. I don't remember what studio owns like a block of these houses in Chicago or something. And that's why they all look so similar.
Oh, right, okay. I didn't realise that. And you're right, it does. I know the house from Home Alone. I've seen, because you see it every Christmas. You see it if somebody's advertising the Home Alone's on, you see the house all lit up, and they are very similar. And as you say, this is the best. This is the payoff. This is the best part of the movie for me. This is the emotional punch in the gut that you get when you see at the very end where they actually drop Dale and Neil off at the train station and they say goodbye. And this time the goodbye is a wee bit more heartfelt. I mean, because they both give each other a proper hug, whereas when they're leaving each other off in the train station earlier, you can see the big gap separating them. You know, they're not standing beside each other, and he's saying, oh, give me your address, I'll send you the money for the ticket. He's like, no, you're good, take it as a gift. This time it's like more kind of hesitant, kind of goodbye, and they give each other a hug, and you can tell that they've become friends and they've bonded, and they feel they seem a wee bit sad about saying goodbye to each other. And the thing is too is that I always like how Steve Martin gets on the train and he goes to check the time and his watch isn't there.
Yeah, that's a great little thing. Do you like the little score that's playing underneath this? Like, does it make you kind of feel emotional? Underneath, like Steve Martin sitting on the train there.
Oh yeah, 100%. But it definitely does. I love that music because you hear it kind of playing a wee bit earlier in the first hotel room scene. When John Candy's giving his wee speech, and then it starts playing again. And the first thing is, if you notice, this is how I read it anyway, John, is that Steve Martin is thinking about his family first, about the dinner and seeing his kids and his wife, and then all of a sudden he starts thinking about Dale, and he's thinking about the journey they went on, and he's laughing about it. Even all the bad moments, he's laughing. He just realizes how he had the time of his life, really, and he didn't realize it. And that's when the penny drops about him saying, I haven't been home in years. And he goes, I love when that music kicks in, and he stays in the train, and he goes back and he comes running out, and he walks in, and you see Dale sitting there, and he says to him, "What are you doing here?" And he's afraid to tell him. He just looks at him. He doesn't know what to say, and he's like, "I'm asking you, what are you doing here? You said you were going to go home." And I love how he just says, "I don't have a home. Um, Marie's been dead for 8 years," and that's it. You don't need to say anything else. I seen an interview with Steve Martin recently. I think you've seen it as well. I think it mentioned it in one of your podcasts. I think you had, John. Maybe it was somebody else mentioned it. It was I don't know if it was a documentary or whatever Steve Martin was doing. He pulled out the script for Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and he went to the back and he says, "There's the ending," and it was this big long monologue that John Candy had about his character and his character's motivation and what he'd been doing, saying that I needed someone to latch on to, and I just latched on to you, and blah blah blah. And they edited it all out. And he says they were right to edit it out. And it's like you said to me in one of the earlier episodes we done about, I think it was The Exorcist, about exposition, about the movie Joker. You don't need to sit and tell us, because we already know, we can tell. And I just love how Steve Martin just kind of like looks kind of puts the, because to me, what Steve Martin is amplifying in that scene is that how the audience is feeling. It's how we all feel. We feel sad for this man that this has happened to him. And I suppose Steve Martin, in a way, being a married man, is probably thinking how, he's lucky to have his wife. And I just love how he looks up at him, and then it just kicks into the next scene. And it goes off the walking. He's carrying the trunk. He's helping him carry the trunk. And then the Paul Young song, which is not the Paul Young version in this movie, starts. And I love how like Dale knows, Dale's self-aware of himself. He's gracious. He says to him, he says, he sees the house and he's like, "Oh, you're a lucky guy." And he's like, "Just come on." And he's like, "Look, I'll just stay for a while. I'll say hello and then I'll leave." And he's like, "Just come on." In other words, no, you're staying.
Yeah, like don't be. He's just trying to be nice and thankful and graceful. Like, you've done so much for me already, and now you're letting me come over. Like, I'll stay for a little while, but it's your family and everything. And then when they walk through that door and the song is playing, it's weird that it's not the Paul Young version like you want it to be, and yet for some reason it's not. And then his wife at the top of the stairs, like says hi to them, and it's very like romantic, like she's been missing him for so long, even though like she's in 2 other scenes of the movie.
Yeah, it's a very emotional scene. I love how he comes in through the door and his kids, are so happy to see him, and his mother and father's there. And his mother-in-law and his father-in-law and his wife comes down, and then they introduce the family to Dale. And when they get up and embrace and kiss, and you see Dale kind of looking, and you see him like grabbing, clutching his hat, and in my mind he's thinking of his wife. That's what I'm thinking. And then John Candy just looks up and gives this smile, and just that freeze frame of just stopping on John Candy's face. It just it's so sad, because obviously we know what happened to John Candy. He died so young, and it's just so sad. And the Paul Young song, they actually tried to get the Paul Young version. Paul Young agreed to it, but the record company wouldn't let them use it, so they had to go with this cover version.
It works for the most part, because they don't start really singing until like a good amount through the scene, which is good. So like you can still get the same beat through the entire time when they're walking up and saying their hellos.
Yeah. Listen, it still kind of works because the music kind of sounds the same. It's just a different singer. And one thing, just saying about the music, I really like the music in this film, and I believe some critics criticize the music, but no, I think it works with the film, and I always look forward to the music when I'm watching this film.
Yeah, I love the score to this music, and I love the score of the film, and I love the music used in the film. I can understand what people are saying. It's very like manipulative and very like on the nose, like when they're giving emotional monologues. Like I said with the train scene, like it feels like, okay, that's there telling us that we're supposed to be emotional. But it's funny how they criticized that back then, but yet nowadays, like we have like full blown exposition explaining what we're supposed to feel. But back then they just put a little bit of a score, and then like that was going too far.
Yeah, well, that's true as well. That's a fair point. I prefer the music than somebody telling me what I kind of already know. I just want to feel it.
Exactly. And just to speak a little bit on the editing, because of all those deleted scenes and how chopped up this movie is, that train scene when they're on the train and how he's sitting there and thinking about his family, that stuff is actually taken between takes. It's just they kept the camera rolling, and while Steve Martin was sitting there with nothing to do, they just kind of filmed him, and they just had like, I guess, I don't know how long a film, but then they just kind of edited together between like clips from the movie, and that's how they just constructed that scene.
Yeah, because I had seen something about Paul Hirsch who edited the movie, and he'd said about how there wasn't an actual clip of the train coming back to get John Candy, or to where John Candy was, because he says, if you notice, he says the train can't go that way. So he says that he just put the same clip of the train moving away. He put it back in reverse as if it was coming back, and he edited it that way to have that more of an emotional punch. So that was down to him, apparently. I think, I can't remember where I actually seen that, John, to be honest with you. But I mean, yes, the wife, if I want to talk about the wife and her very neediness and just her strange reaction to seeing her husband and being so worried that he was away, even though he was keeping in contact and saying, look, I'm delayed.
Yeah, that stuff, and she's another actress in this movie, had a bigger role. This is actually her first film role. She was apparently a model before this, and I've seen her in other things. I just can't put my like she's in this movie just filled with people who are like that guys or that girls, like you've seen them before, and she's one of them. But like in this movie, the way she seems so needy and like kind of like worried about like what her husband's doing, and like the way she speaks throughout the movie, like in this very like soft voice. You're like, what the hell is she doing? Is she in the same movie as everybody else? When you watch the deleted scenes, she thinks that he's out there cheating on her, and that's why she's so worried. So that's why it explains that. She's relieved at the end that this guy that she's been bringing up throughout the movie, Del Griffith, is a real person, and he's standing in front of her.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I found out as well, is that because I found it strange that her reaction, more so at the very end of the movie, when she comes down the stairs and she looks like she's in tears and can't believe, oh, this guy is real, or you know what I mean? It's a very, very strange reaction. And now that you know from the deleted scenes that she thinks that Neil is with another woman over Thanksgiving or before Thanksgiving, that gives it a wee bit more context. However, I have a few questions that I wanted to ask you. Is that, what do you think actually happens then after this movie ends? What do you think happens with Dale and Neil and the ensuing days after this film?
I feel like Dell goes back out on the road and maybe they keep in contact. It's the 1980s, so what do you do? Like, you can't really send a letter. Maybe he has his phone number, he calls him. Maybe next time he's in town, he pops by and they meet up or something, because they both obviously travel. So it's like, hey, maybe we'll have lunch or something. We'll laugh about what happened that one Thanksgiving, because they definitely made some memories along this way. That's for sure.
Yeah. I actually think that Dale starts having an affair with Neil's wife, and the wife throws Neil out, and he becomes the homeless one carrying his briefcase. Because I felt as if there was an awful lot of sexual tension at the very end when she seen Dale at that front door. The way she went.
The way he twists the hat. Well, Dell's definitely. I mean, although he's got the porn book. I don't know. I'm sure he's found some. He's in all these different cities. Like, look at the cab driver he knew how to call. I'm sure he's found some ladies.
Well, you watch it again, John. It's what I keep saying about layers in this movie. She says a very kind of sensual, "Hello, Mr. Griffiths," and he's like, "Hello, Mrs. Page."
I just thought they both went to the Jack Palance School of Acting.
No, in all honesty, I've thought about this. What happens after? That's one theory. The other theory is actually that I think he lets Dale live with him for a while until Dale gets back on the right track again. I mean, this is a man. He's grieving. He's never ever let go. He's never ever got over the death of his wife in 8 years. He's grieving, right? And I think that this experience will help him get over the death of his wife, being able to confide in Neil. And I think Neil is big enough, the house he let him stay there. Maybe he gets him a job in the place where he works, upgrades some shower curtain rings, and Dale gets on his feet, is able to buy his own house, and they become lifelong friends. And maybe Dale meets another woman, maybe it's Mrs. Page's sister or one of her friends, and they've just become lifelong friends, and he lives in Chicago with Neil. I
mean, that's the perfect outcome, and I hope that does happen for him. It is crazy that this guy was throughout this entire film, a shower curtain salesman.
Yeah, it's funny. But I do like when he's selling the shower curtains and he's passing them off as something else.
Yeah, no, I love that they put that scene in there. Like, you don't really necessarily need it, but it shows that he's a good salesman.
Oh yeah, it shows he's good at what he does. Yeah, but he would have to be. And that brings me to another question. What do you think is in his trunk?
I'm gonna say that definitely the urn for his dead wife is in there. I mean, we know his pillow's in there because he said he travels with it because he's allergic to sponge. So he's got that's like a little bit of space right there. What else does he carries around? Probably food and clothes and that ridiculous coat. What do you think's
Well,
in there?
I think it is actual dead wife. I think the whole wife. I think he killed her. I think that's why it's so heavy. The dead, rotten corpse of his wife. I was talking about Psycho earlier. This is just a Psycho for the 80s.
I can see that, and I can see how you got there. Also, I had a question that I wanted to ask you in a similar vein. Have you ever, like, I don't know if anyone in your family who goes to a place and takes a headshot of themselves, and that's like something that they have a big blown up picture that's in a picture frame.
What, of himself?
Well, like he has a picture of his wife, and she clearly went to like I don't know, like a scene and got a picture of herself, like a beautiful picture, and he's got the whole frame blown up.
Oh yeah, I know what you're saying. Sorry, yeah, it's almost like a passport photo. It's better than a passport photo when it's blown up. Yeah, I know what you mean. No, not that I know of. Only maybe like your school pictures that you used to get them in school. You know, of you go in and get like
who got them like at 30.
Yeah, that's right, and that's in the his case as well. So it is. That's in his trunk because he always puts it up. He had it up beside the bed. He always takes it and puts it up beside the bed. So that's in there.
Yeah, different time. He had to have a full. Yeah, he couldn't keep it in his phone, so that's a picture he has of his wife. Who knows how much more he has of her.
But that's a good shout. The urn. I never thought of the urn. I just thought of the full body. That's what I was thinking.
Like I just don't know if he can. I mean, I'm sure she's 8 years. Just mostly bones now. Probably a little bit less.
It depends. Could be mummified. If that's airtight.
Very possible. I don't know. He's definitely a weird guy, Del Griffith. That's the clothes he chooses to wear. Like we didn't even talk about earlier in the movie, that mustard yellow shirt that he had on with the vest.
Yeah, that's like a maroon type kind of suit he's wearing as well. And when you think about it, like this movie only takes place over the space of 2.5 days, and you feel like you've spent longer with these characters. When I was watching it again, I was like, that's one day, that's the next day, because I wanted to see, but it is only a couple of days. And some of his wardrobe is it's a bit strange.
Definitely a one of a kind. Meanwhile, Neil's in the same clothes that whole time.
Yeah, that's what he says to the hotel guy. He says about that, I've been wearing the same underwear since Tuesday. And Dale says, I can vouch for that.
What's really funny about that is that it's Wednesday. So that was only yesterday.
I know, because that's what I was working out. That was only like the first night. Oh, no, I might have been the second night. Was that not the second night?
Yeah, that was the night before. That's the night when the car went on fire, and the day before they were at the first motel. So, but still, like they missed the flight the night before. It's only been 24 hours.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's not like it's been a week or something.
Yeah, I mean, he's been through hell in that 24 hours, in the sense that like his clothes, he fell down the whole that walk back from the airport parking lot when he fell in the snow and everything. Like he's in those same clothes. Yeah, he's been through it.
Yeah, he's been through hell, and that's the thing about the trunk. At least Dale probably has like different set of clothes. He's got stuff there like that equips him for this colder weather, and whereas Neil doesn't. And even his briefcase gets run over in New York by one of the taxis, and he's been through. It seems to be a wee bit more of a rougher time. And Dale, being on the road all the time, probably staying in these kind of rundown wee motels and all, he's used to it.
Yeah, he's used to all that stuff. Like even when they're in a taxi cab and they're driving, it's a ridiculous taxi, and he's like, where's he taking us? He's like, oh, he's proud of his town. Like he knows all these guys.
Yeah, and he's taking them the long way so he can charge them more.
Yeah, exactly. But Dell's friendly and everything. He thinks he's being nice.
Yeah, the scenic route. But I love as well, just saying there about traveling. He actually says to when they're saying goodbye at the end at the train station, Dale says to him, next time, let's go first class. And Neil says, oh, well, hopefully there won't be a next time. And Dale says, oh, no, hopefully not. Exactly what I was thinking. And it's like, no, that's not what he was thinking. But the funny thing was that Neil was supposed to be going first class at the very start. And if he had been going first class, he wouldn't have been beside him on the plane. And he probably wouldn't have went on this journey. He probably would have only just talked to him in the airport, and that would have been it.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the end of like it, which is messed up. How do you get booked and ticketed for a first class ticket, and then like when they get on the plane, they're like, "Oh, well, you're in coach now." It's like, I mean, she does say like, "Oh, they'll pay the difference over there," but she's pretty rude about it, honestly.
Yeah, she really was, and I don't know if it was one of those situations where because the plane was delayed, like, do you ever hear of like planes and stuff getting double booked?
Well, that actually happened to me recently when I went away. I got my flight canceled at the very same about 15 minutes before it was supposed to board. And it turns out they had another flight at that exact same time. So they double booked the flight and half of us got canceled.
Yeah, well, that's what I was kind of thinking. Like, if it's been double booked, it's like, yeah, all those seats in first class have been taken, so you're sitting there, and if you don't like it, then you'll have to get off.
Yeah, like that was one of those moments they put in there to show us like how uptight he is, like, oh, he won't go sit and coach. But I'm thinking, like, if he paid for his first class ticket, I'd be a little pissed off too that I don't find out I'm sitting in first class until I get on the plane.
Oh yeah, of course. If you've paid for it, you want to get what you've paid for. I mean, that's why you're paying for it. That's why. I mean, okay, you might say he's a bit snobby and a bit uptight because he wants to go first class, and not everybody can afford first class. But it's more about principle. It's more about kind of that's what you paid for, so you should be getting what you asked for.
Yeah, yeah. The whole point is to show us how snobby and how he's flying in first class. The differences between the two of them. Like Dell's in the back, and he doesn't even mind it. Like, of course not. He's taking his socks off and everything, sleeping on his shoulder like the other old guy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. He's not having a good time at all.
Didn't you notice when you were talking? I read the vomit bag.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It's very funny. I had to please says that about reading the vomit bag as well.
It's like, here's the thing: make it interesting for the listener.
Yeah, every what does he say? Every story doesn't have to be an anecdote. You you have to discriminate. Tell the ones that have a point.
He's like, oh yeah, like here, this is Dale Griffin, and here's a gun. You'll thank me for it.
And that's the funny thing too. Like Steve Martin has these wee strange lines, like at the start where he's running for the cab, and he's like, "You're messing with the wrong guy," you know. It's like, really? And then later on when he says about, "Yeah, I can take anything because I know Dale Griffith."
Yeah, it feels like they wanted to give him because he does play the straight man, and I mean, this is Steve Martin. I mean, he's one of considered one of the Mount Rushmore of comedians, like stand up and in movies. So it's like it's weird at the time, especially to see him play the straight man.
Yeah, and he had actually said, and I said I appreciate it. I really do. Like I think I talked about before about, I did actually talk about it before about comedians being restrained. Look, I don't know. I need to go back and watch some more Steve Martin movies. I haven't watched a lot of them for many years. I really like the Three Amigos. I really like his role in that movie with Martin Short and Chevy Chase.
That's a great one.
Very funny movie, but I also feel as well, because of the script, because of the emotional anchor of this movie, because of the heart of this movie, the characters in this movie are kind of restrained because they have to walk that fine line of him being this type of character to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. That's what I think anyway, and it's the same with John Candy. They just couldn't go in there. Apparently, John Hughes said that I'm not the type of guy that's like, just do what's on the page. He's like, let's do another take. And do another take, and he let them kind of do their own thing and improvise a wee bit. And he said himself that he was open to a suggestion. He says he would take suggestion off the sound man if it made the scene better. So he wasn't just like Quentin Tarantino or whatever's on the page, let's just do it. But I also feel as well that the performances in this aren't over the top. But that could be as well as because apparently they filmed a lot more footage. The original cut was like near 4 hours long, and they trimmed it down. So it could well be that if there was something a wee bit too outrageous or too over the top, they could have trimmed that down or took one of the other takes. So Yeah, I actually appreciate that about the actors in the film.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate that too. Like, I think me and you actually have talked about this in other podcasts about how, like, especially like when we think we covered a little bit in Ace Ventura about how in Dumb and Dumber, Jim Carrey, they didn't want to hire Jeff Daniels because he wasn't a comedic actor.
Mhm.
And it's like you need, if you're gonna have an over the top comedic actor, you need somebody to like kind of reel it in, or it's just like two guys trying to outdo each other. You gotta need
Mhm.
actors who actually know how to play their roles, and that's what Steve Martin and John Candy in this movie know how to do. They're not trying to outshine the other one; they work as a team.
Yeah, and I suppose that's what I'm trying. Yeah, you said a lot better than me there, John. What I'm trying to say as well is that they complement each other.
That's the word: complement each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I believe Steve Martin says that the two scenes that made him want to do the movie was the scene where he was confronted the attendant in the airport over his car, and the other scene was the chair scene in the car. And I love how in the interview they actually done to promote the movie. That one of the reporters said about how come you two hadn't worked together before, and Steve Martin says to John Candy, "Oh, why haven't you worked with De Niro before either?" I wish John Candy had said to him, but I was waiting to work with you first because yeah, I wanted to work with you first. I would have been my response.
I don't think either of them ever worked with like De Niro or Pesci. If I'm thinking about it, pretty sure no.
I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure, but I don't think they have. I mean, I know that obviously John Candy was in JFK, and there's a lot of people have praised his performance in JFK, playing that real serious character in that movie.
I love, it's funny. I used to think his performance was over the top ridiculous in that movie and out of place until I looked up the character he was playing and the accent was spot on to prove that I was a fool. And then he was actually doing a great job.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because I've seen, I'm very fascinated by that whole JFK thing, assassination thing, and when I seen footage of that guy, it wasn't beside John Candy or anything like that. It was kind of like I can't remember what it was in. It was a documentary, and I went, "There's the guy that John Candy was playing. He got it. He got it spot on."
Right? Like it just shows you how good like they got us. Like you think it's ridiculous, and then it has to be like, oh no, there's just people out in this world that are just ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just going to say about planes, trains, and automobiles as well, is that obviously we don't celebrate Thanksgiving over here in Ireland. So me discovering this movie kind of only 5 years ago or so, this is one of my go-to Christmas movies. It wouldn't be one I'd watch around Thanksgiving, so I know that it's kind of it's became one of those movies that Americans would watch around Thanksgiving for that holiday. For me, I imagine that it's Christmas he's trying to get home for, and because you guys have turkey and stuff on Thanksgiving, so if you wanna, can you explain a wee bit more about Thanksgiving because I don't really know much about it.
So Thanksgiving is basically it's really, if you break it down to like its simplified form, it's really the day that we discovered America, and you can look at it as the day that we stole America from Native Americans. So it's a holiday that it's a celebration of like the Native Americans and the Pilgrims, the original people came to America. That was the day that they like had dinner, and they said that they had turkey and everything, and it's extremely over exaggerated, and it's become just an American tradition that we celebrate that you get together, you watch American football, and you just basically have a turkey dinner. And for a lot of us now, especially, it's just really like the start of the Christmas season. So it's funny that you look at it as like a Christmas movie for you, because for me and like for Faith, like we do Thanksgiving, and then the next day it's Christmas until Christmas.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fair enough. I say we don't celebrate it here, so I never looked into what it was about. I know you guys celebrated on the last Thursday of November, and yeah, because I look upon this as a Christmas movie because they're having turkey, because we would have turkey on Christmas Day. That would be our tradition. It would be turkey on Christmas Day. I mean, you wouldn't really have turkey any other time of the year. Maybe Easter, maybe. But it's Christmas. You're having turkey and stuffing and all the rest, the veg and the potatoes and the roasties.
We do it twice in a month.
So we just have turkey again on Christmas Day then?
Yeah, some people have ham, but we do turkey. Like basically, it's the same exact thing. It's basically turkey stuffing, mac and cheese, like yams and all that kind of stuff. Me personally, I don't really love turkey. Find it a bit dry. I'm there for the sides.
No, no, I love turkey. Absolutely love it. Love my Christmas dinner. It's the thing as an adult I look forward to more than anything is the Christmas dinner. So I would probably watch this movie more closer to Christmas. Obviously, I've watched it a wee bit earlier this year because we were doing it for the pod. And yes, of course it is. It's more of a Thanksgiving movie. Well, it is a Thanksgiving movie. It's not.
Well,
It's not a. It's not a Christmas movie.
there's really not many Thanksgiving movies. This is really it. There's also another. I think John Hughes had something to do it. Actually, I'm pretty sure he directed it or he wrote it. The movie Dutch. That's another Thanksgiving movie. And then there was a slasher last year called Thanksgiving. But that's really it because it is just an American holiday. No one
Yeah.
else is going to celebrate. The day we discovered America, and all them people who live in America, it'd be strange. So Christmas is more universal.
Yeah, it is. Christmas is celebrated a bit more universal. And we done Rocky last year for the Thanksgiving movie, but I consider Rocky to be a Thanksgiving movie, even though it's not really.
Yeah, there's Thanksgiving scenes in movies. Like, we can look at it like how like we look at Lethal Weapon as like a secondary Christmas movie, how it's happening in the background. Which I've been thinking a lot about Lethal Weapon. It's like coming into that time of the year for me.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was thinking about that. I was going like, I must ask Sean about Thanksgiving, and I was sitting thinking, yeah, this is the movie that Planes, Trains is the movie that kicks off Christmas for me. And I was like, no, it's not. It's Lethal Weapon is the movie that kicks off the Christmas movie season for me. But Planes, Trains is one of those movies in rotation I would watch every year around Christmas, and I love watching Rocky around November time every other year, whatever, because it is set in around that period of Thanksgiving, and then up to Christmas. Just mentioning about the titles of movies or having certain scenes in movies to do with holidays. It's funny that Christmas Vacation, I think, came out in the UK in like February time, and I'm near certain it was called Winter Vacation rather than Christmas Vacation.
I could see that. I mean, it always blows my mind when things like that happen, but that's absurd to the absurdist that they would do. That's clearly a Christmas movie.
I mean, I know that movies used to come out kind of like in the States first, and then it would come out over here like 6 months later. That's the way it used to be done in the 80s or whatever it was. But I just really think it's bad marketing to kind of release a movie called Christmas Vacation in February. I'm sure they could have came to some kind of arrangement to release it in December.
I mean, it's ridiculous, but then again, everybody knows that Halloween's on October 31st, and you'd be surprised how many movies in the Halloween franchise have come out in the summer.
Yeah, that's weird. I know that's true. That's true. I suppose that's true when you look at certain movies that come out throughout the year and they're not really of the season, and you think that would be better coming out at this time of year. Marketing ways, you think that would be better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure when Jaws 4 came out. I'm sure you know off the top of your head, but that would have made sense to come out in December, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, Jaws 4 came out on July 17th, 1987 in America, and in the States. I'm not sure. I think it came out in August in the UK. But yes, Jaws: The Revenge is one of my Christmas movies. I watch that every December. I usually like to watch it in between Christmas and New Year because there's a New Year's scene in it as well. But it has become a Christmas movie for me. I think I mentioned that in the episode we done. And when I watched it for the episode, which was in summer, it felt weird. Even though the majority of the film takes place in sunshine, it felt weird watching it in the summer because I've been watching it over the last 30 years at Christmas time.
The next time I watch it will be in Christmas. And it's funny because I think a lot about that kill on the water, in Amityville, which is funny. We just did this a few months ago. But I think about it and I can see the Christmas lights in my head. So now my mind associates Jaws 4 with, Christmas. A lot like Die Hard,
Well, I would recommend watch it on Boxing Day or St. Stephen's Day. I think that's probably the real name for it, St. Stephen's Day. Watch it in between, and you'll get more out of it. But yeah, listen, I'm a Jaws nerd. I need my Jaws fix. I can't be watching a summer movie in December, but I can watch Jaws: The Revenge because it's got a Christmas scene at the start.
Any little excuse we can get to watch those movies at a different time of the year, which is funny because that leads perfectly into like what our Christmas movies are going to be this year. We have our first one after this one, which is what, David?
Yeah, well, me and John are just going to we're just gonna sit up there after midnight, have a feed, and we're gonna turn in the Gremlins, and that's what we're gonna do next.
It's perfectly on brand for us to do Gremlins. Not quite a Steven Spielberg movie, but another Steven Spielberg presents film.
I think it's a good one to do. I think we know we love our 80s Spielberg. This year I think we've done the Goonies and we've done E.T.
And we've done Back to the Future.
We done Back to the Future as well, yeah. So this is another Spielberg produced, influenced horror movie, I suppose. I'm looking forward to it. I haven't watched Gremlins in a couple of years.
Me neither, actually. It's been a couple of years, so I'm really excited to actually talk about this one because I do really love Gremlins.
Yeah. This is definitely one of my favorite Christmas movies.
So that's definitely the next time you guys will see us. And hopefully you guys enjoyed our conversation on planes, trains, and automobiles because I had a great time with this one. How about you, David?
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed this one, John. I always love when we do a comedy now because we could just take it a wee bit more lightly.
Yeah, we don't have to go too deep on everything. Sometimes we could just talk about, you could be a little lighthearted. Obviously, John Hughes knows that. Like we kept talking about through the podcast about those like scenes that kind of leave reality a little bit behind.
Yeah, and do you know what? Just mentioned there, we mentioned about John Hughes, and I'd watched the documentary on him on the Blu-ray, and he had said about he'd been criticised about his movies not having much plot, and he says that if that's what he set out to do it was all about the characters, the characterizations, and he really achieved it with this movie, and I was thinking about this too. It's a lot like Stakeout. When we discussed Stakeout, I found that Stakeout was one of them films that the plot wasn't overly elaborate, but it was about the characters, and it's the same with this movie.
Yeah, you don't need necessarily a very over-the-top plot, but like even though this movie does have a plot twist in it, very simply, it's just like we just have to get home by Thanksgiving, so we know when they have to be home by, and that's it. Otherwise, you're just spending those 2 days with these characters, and like we said throughout the entire show, you bring in great actors. You care, even in small roles, you care about their performances.
Yeah, exactly.
Movie's filled with just besides those 2 lead roles, everyone around him, and just tiny roles, just delivering.
Yeah, and listen, it's the heart of the movie is what makes it work. It's not just the comedy; it's the emotional punch that you get from these characters.
Yep, I completely agree. And anyway, guys, thanks for joining us here on another episode of the Let's Talk podcast, and we'll be seeing you around.